Okay, joys of acquired structures. Today we're going to talk about and use this door in reference to the term progressive damage. So whenever we deal with an incident and we have all these different modes and methods of forcible entry or through the lock or respectful entry, when it's an emergency situation, we always want to use the fastest method that gives us the combination of that speed and ability to control environment that we possibly can for that emergency situation. But when we're dealing with those other calls, wellness checks, lift assist, stuff like that, where we don't have that same emergency situation, we have to remember that we're a service, and as a service we want to provide the best service possible. So I want to minimize the damage I'm going to do to the person who's called for our help property. That's one of the main things we do, right? Number 3 of life, instant stabilization, and then property conservation. And we want to make sure that we minimize the damage. So we're going to look at the door. We're going to pretend this handle here is a key and knob lock to go through these examples. One of the first things I'm going to do is try and make entry with no damage whatsoever. One of the tools I can use for that is firefighter swipe tool. What I'm going to come in is this is a great tool for figuring out. I slide it in. I can figure out if there's any additional locks. I can find out if the deadbolt's engaged, which it's not. And then I can come on down to our handle and work our way in. Okay, so I'm simply sliding this down on that angle and pushing it through to get entry. So now we have entry. But what happens if we're sliding down and we go to make entry and we still have that anti-loitering pin we gotta deal with, and this is just too secure for me to be able to get? I could try and expand the door with our airbag to allow that anti-loitering pin to release. This is all going to obviously gauge on the construction of the door, construction of the wall, right? How much give there is in the frame and the system to allow me to get in and grab that pin. And now that we have that expansion, we've grabbed it, I can release the pressure, and our door, there we go, come along. Now our other plan there, our swipe tool's gone in, it's gone through. We can't get that anti-loitering pin, doors properly installed, we can't swipe it. Other plan now is we can do some lock damage. So I don't want to bust out my irons just yet and totally destroy the frame, the door, and the locks. I'm going to look to just damage the locks themselves. That's where we can use the forks of our Halligan or our Rex tool. We're just going to pull the outside of that key and knob lock and then what we get is, depending on the type and everything with the key and knob lock, we might get our collar still attached with the spindle we can grab with our needle nose pliers and twist. We might get the collar and spindle has come out. Now I'm going to use any number of my flathead screwdrivers to go in and work with that, or just simply using a key tool to go down the collar and manipulate the latch system. And that's going to let us in that way. If we're working this and we've done that and we still have no way to get in, plan C is we have to remove the whole face of this lock system. So we're going to pull it much like we would a deadbolt. We're going to come in and remove this entire system. Now, one little thing we can do to help, again, we don't want to damage the door any more than we have to, is I've got just a piece of electrical plate with some padding glued to the back of it. So when we drive this back in there, I'll be able to minimize some of that door damage. And the Truckman head on my S&D Rex. important to remember too that we don't always need this all the way out. If we can get access into the screws, we can use our cutters to get in and cut the bolt system. Now the way this one's accessed, my bolts are on the far side, so I'm going to have to continue to pull on that to get it out. But as you can see, that deflection I'm putting in this, I'm avoiding that having to go into the door. Now we've pulled that all the way out. Again, we can get our key tool or a screwdriver, and we can manipulate this whole latch system in here. So my key tool is not quite the right fit. I'm going to swatch over to one of my screwdrivers, and that's going to do it for me. So that's the way we're going to go through our progression of damage with our key and knob lock. Now we're going to simulate we've come up, and let's say I use my swipe tool and I've come down and I've found that this deadbolt is engaged. So deadbolt's engaged, I want to deal with it. One of the first things we're going to try is I want to limit damage. I'm going to place my glove on the deadbolt, and I'm simply going to see if I can bash it down. Occasionally, you'll get a really cheap old deadbolt that doesn't have an internal collar that holds it to the door. So it'll slide down and allow us to use a pick tool to get in and unlock the door. So this one obviously has that internal collar. It's not budging for us. So again, I'm going to turn over to our S&D Rex and we're going to pull this lock. Once I've defeated this lock, everything on that key and knob lock that we've just gone through is then going to apply again. Truckman tools in place. Put a bit of my backing in. Oh yeah, so you can see this one had that internal collar which was going to stop us and prevent us from doing what we needed. Now again, I only need to pry this as much as I have to get in and get these bolts. I need a little bit more, but the littlest amount of prying I do on the door means the less force and the less damage I put into the door. The whole point of this is to save property. Got a little bit to the side. Kimpex are absolutely amazing little heavy duty pliers or cutters. We got one cut. I'm just going to free up some space so we can cut up the other one. Might even be able to snap it. There we go. So we've cut those two bolts out of the way, and we're presented again with our mechanism on the inside. with that mechanism on the inside, I can use my key tool, whatever I might need, and I can unlock the door. Now I've unlocked my deadbolt. My swipe tool can be used again to come down and swipe the key and knob lock. But the key and knob lock is going to be all those same processes we've just done. So I've defeated my deadbolt, swiped it across. So far, it's only lock damage. There's a little bit of door damage here, engaged as well, but not too much. That's going to easily be covered by a $20 piece of reinforcing plaque or standard. This one's giving me a little bit of grief. Once we have that, might be easier to use my swipe tool. Once we have that open, we can go through. My deadbolt's gone. I can swipe in, and away we go. Okay? Or I do my series of steps like we've already done with our other. Now, whenever I'm doing through the lock, you've even seen this video, you struggle with sometimes plan A doesn't quite work as you want, plan B doesn't work as you want, plan C, and so on and so forth. And we've done that slow progression. We had 0 damage where the swipe tool did it all for us. We had lock only damage where we had to look at breaking the key and knob lock. We had lock only damage with our deadbolt. We investigated if we could do a 0 damage with the deadbolt. That didn't work for us. We made sure to use our Kimpex pliers to get good cuts so we didn't do too much prying against that door, damaging it further than required or needed. But sometimes all that doesn't work, or we'll just want to get on in there in a hurry. And that's why we always bring our keys to the city. The iron's with us. So whenever it comes down to it, if we got to get in, we can with our traditional gap set force. Do our live fire layout and pull our door closed. Remember, the objective of your gap set force is we're looking to do exactly this. We're looking to break the locks out through the door or out through the jamb. So when you're guiding your tool, don't get confused with which way to apply pressure. We want to aim to apply our pressure 90 degrees to these lock sets because we're looking to drive them out of the wall, snap them in half, or drive them through the door themselves.